a little bit about Cyber Capital Partners and what are we investing in. We were really fortunate to make our first major acquisition on December 31st of last year, and we bought two companies, Point3 Security and their sister business, Point3 Federal, which got rebranded to P3F at some point. So P3F is our cybersecurity, CyberWar services platform, and we look to do sponsored R&D. We do mission support. We do nation state level exploitability testing, and I can talk a bit more about that. We do test and evaluation and workforce development, and you can see there's a strong alignment with where we think the government's going to spend money and where we've prioritized our investment dollars. In our CyberWar Technologies Accelerator and our venture studioing activity, we've got a lot of really great activity. Escalate and Jupiter, we're really excited about. Those are part of the Point3 portfolio. Escalate is a training platform. It's a skills assessment. We took two gentlemen who spent their time within a particular fort learning how to do mission support, how to run large implants and listening post exercises. And Jupiter itself is a command and control platform. We utilize it for test and evaluation of client environments, right? And so that nation state level exploitability testing versus pen testing, I don't really care too much about whether or not you can break into my website. I care about how would Russia, how would China break into and take control over my nuclear power plants. With Escalate, that product set is really interesting, and that's all around when the Pentagon is looking to train cyber operators. Historically, they did so through rote memorization, paper-based exercises, and the Pentagon came to the Point3 team and had them observe what the training challenges were. And Evan Dornbush and John Rigney, the founders of Point3, built out a cyber range and eventually 166 cyber challenges, because you need to do computer-based training if you're going to have computer operators. And basically Escalate is a cyber simulator, just like a flight simulator training pilots. On the Department of Energy side, we have a contract with the U.S. Department of Energy to help commercialize cyber technologies from the national laboratories. And what we do there is showcase those technologies. We vet them down. We look to understand what is the market appetite for them. And then we develop the messaging so that we can do a virtual showcase and in-person showcases of those technologies, where we look to solicit the input from the ecosystem, whether those are strategic partners, their potential investors, their customers. And all that says, okay, from the national lab, they developed this great proof of concept technology that either the U.S. Department of Defense, Intelligence Community, Homeland Security made a request for, or the energy sector made a request for. And so what that means is you've got a real problem that DOE has figured out a initial solution for, but they get stuck on the shelf because the national laboratories aren't meant as a cybersecurity accelerator. So as part of our contract with DOE, we take those technologies. There's about 250 advanced R&D programs that have reached proof of concept across 10 cyber labs. We vet those down, we showcase them to our audience, and then based off of how the audience reacts to that technology, we'll go and interview the audience members or similar audience members, similar organizations that look like the audience members, and determine, do we have market demand? Are there organizations that want to make the investments because they believe in the opportunity? Are there organizations that want to make the partnership investment, meaning are they going to take the technology forward with their own technology that they bring, their own customer set, and we develop those into new companies licensing the technologies from the national labs. And then on the right here are the organizations like Stealth Path, and I was mentioning, artificial intelligence-driven incident response, which is Velocity and Group of Solace. All of these organizations over here, we work with, we collaborate with, and help bring them to market so that our solution set is enhanced and so that there's a common integration. I'm not going to go through too much time on this. We only have another 6 minutes before we get to Q&A.
Jason, I just want to say one thing real quick on that last slide.
Yeah.
I want to just that middle column there, so to speak, with Department of Energy and corporate.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Studio. This is really where we can gain market intelligence. Okay. So here's where you can see the demand, not always the money, but you can see the problem, because these are the thought leaders in critical infrastructure, and they're identifying what the challenges are and which challenges have to be prioritized and which ones executed. So if you want kind of advanced notice of what's coming to the market, it's this center column here that really gives us that intelligence to know how to invest and where to take these products.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you do a lot of work with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're solving the problems on the hydroelectric dams. They're bringing those solutions that the government is spending lots of energy and resources on. Bringing them to market really requires a whole lot of steps involved, and I don't mean this in a too terribly of a disparaging way, but most of the cybersecurity technologists that I know have spent 20 years in a SCIF, or they have, really figured out how to develop a state-of-the-art technology. And just like any other form of brilliance, they've got a strength that other people don't possess, but they don't have the business acumen or the sales expertise or the access to the customers. And we really think that those are critical functions that somehow Series A investors or later round investors are expecting that cyber entrepreneur to have. Our philosophy is quite different. We think take the technologies once they reach proof of concept, whether it's with the Army Corps of Engineers or it's with the Department of Energy. We're also a U.S. Department of Defense trusted capital provider, which means that we see a lot of military technologies that have also reached proof of concept that haven't reached market adoption yet. And we work with them to bring them through that whole process. So, Cliff, you're absolutely right on that Army Corps piece. When we talk about what is the venture studioing and what are the opportunities, we're soliciting, as part of today's conversation, but Cyber Capital Partners is always soliciting partners, investors, customers who are willing to go through the test and evaluation, the customer requirements, the beta testing. How do you bring that, technology readiness level 4 technology, which just means it's gotten a proof of concept, it was successfully tested, but it's not at an MVP, it's not market ready. How do you go through all of that work? And as you can see here, what we want to do is build out a high fidelity range so that we can do test and evaluation of the industrial control systems before we go introduce a new cyber solution into their production environment. And the more that we integrate artificial intelligence into that, where we're doing it on both the offensive and defensive side, the more we're able to establish a base level of efficacy and measure the improved cyber efficacy by the introduction of a new software, a new solution, a new firewall, as Cliff was mentioning. Wi-Fi, that's a really cool project, Idaho National Laboratories. How do you identify the signal threats? And the way that we take down technologies, the way that we gain access, yes, it could be the drop thumb drive, but it can also be an unknown signal that is picking up the Wi-Fi signal, or figuring out how to jam the operations, and the signal processing. The next piece, and Cliff talked about this before, the OT environment and the IT environment, those are two critical core functions of any industrial control system-based organization, but there tends to be a lot of stovepiping between the two, and that is catastrophic. It can be certainly catastrophic in a active attack, and if the cyber team, the IT team, don't really understand what's going on in the OT environment, you can have several negative responses. One is you can take down, take down the production, and when uptime is such a critical factor, that is problematic by itself. Two, you can do dangerous things that harm the operators, and so if there's not clear communication between, then you've got these additional risks that really show up during an incident. So we're developing out, based off of Pacific Northwest's OT visualization dashboard, we're creating an industrial control systems command and control platform. I've got a long line of things we want to do with that, but part of what we want to do is build that into as a complement to the test and evaluation range. Because if you're doing continuous breach and attack simulation, Amazon Web Services is constantly attacking their own network. If you do that same kind of breach and attack simulation, then your team is better prepared when the Russians, when the Chinese, when the Iranians, North Koreans, Iraqis are doing it, and you have a much better response. One of the awesome technologies, definitely at a TRL4, is Mastery, and that is how does this one device, if this device goes down, how many downstream devices does it take down? And if you can understand the downstream impacts before the event occurs, then you can minimize the disruption to operations. Because you can do that modeling and simulation on a continuous basis. And if something new happens and an incident occurs, you've got that live environment that you can test before you go make a change and understand, if I turn off this switch, what are the things, what are the other things that are going to fall?
Jason, real quick on that one. The one other real value to that is if you understand the correlation of one device to the others, it can really help you with your limited security budget, figure out where best to focus it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've got a limited budget, what devices are you going to harden? What are the critical devices, right?
And this kind of visibility is of extreme value for that.
Yep. And then the last piece here, this is a risk management framework for the nuclear power industry. However, we intend to take it to the 16 critical infrastructure sectors and combine it into Escalate, so that we can do both the risk management and the sector-specific workforce training and skill assessment platform. So those are the things that Cyber Capital Partners is heavily focused on, whether it's on the services side or the technologies. And then on the prior slide, we've got the working relationships with a bunch of entrepreneur-led cybersecurity startups where we partner with them to bring them into the customer sets. And whether you want to talk on how can we collaborate on our portfolio, the Department of Energy or the Army Corps of Engineers or the DoD Trusted Capital Marketplace, or any of these standalone organizations, we welcome that conversation. So with that,